Welcome to This Explainer. We are diving straight into the systemic reality of environmental disparities today. We're going way beyond the usual headlines, really leaning on the latest research and data to understand how pollution, climate change, and weak regulations are piling the heaviest burdens on communities that are already facing incredible challenges. We'll be looking at everything from the very air we breathe right down to the incredible data-driven ways that communities are fighting back.
To really grasp the urgency here, I want you to just think about this number for a second. 5. A recent study in The Guardian uncovered a frankly staggering statistic. 5 Americans die every single hour from toxic vehicle emissions. I mean, that is a devastating human cost. But here's the absolutely critical part. That burden, it is not shared equally. These tragic health impacts, including massive spikes in childhood asthma, are heavily concentrated near busy freight routes, expanding warehouse districts, and lower-income neighborhoods.
And that alarming reality brings us directly to what we call fence-line communities. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. As researchers outline, this refers to neighborhoods bordering industrial sites, highways, refineries. The people living on this fence line, they aren't just dealing with an occasional bad smell, right? They're facing overlapping, chronic health stresses, much higher disaster risks, and constant toxic exposures literally right at their doorsteps.
So, here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll explore the environmental justice divide, look at unequal pollution and toxics, discuss urban heat and water, and finish up with the power of community mapping. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Section 1, the environmental justice divide. We need to establish the foundational reality of this issue, which is that climate and pollution burdens are simply not shared equally across society. The core injustice of our time is that neighborhoods with the least political influence, which are very often low-income communities of color or indigenous communities, they disproportionately bear the brunt of our industrial footprint. They are the ones living next to the coal plants, the cement factories, the expanding warehouse hubs with that endless diesel truck traffic. And the kicker? They're often the ones contributing the absolute least to global emissions in the first place.
Moving on to Section 2, let's examine the staggering scale of this unequal pollution and what happens when industries face, or completely avoid, toxic accountability.
To put the sheer scale of this exposure into perspective, take a look at a massive November 2025 Boston University study. They mapped out overlooked, hidden fossil fuel infrastructure across the country. And they found that nearly 47 million Americans live dangerously close to sites like active wells, pipelines, storage facilities, and transport hubs. We aren't just talking about massive, obvious smokestacks here. These are hidden elements of the supply chain, silently exposing millions of people to hazards every single day.
And this localized exposure leaves a very long-term toxic legacy. Just look at a few examples from recent data. In Ohio, researchers are literally documenting lasting immune system stress in residents after the East Palestine train derailment. In the courts, chemical giant Chemours is paying a $450 million settlement over PFAS, those forever chemicals, polluting drinking water across multiple states. Meanwhile, you have bankrupt companies like U.S. Magnesium leaving behind hazardous toxic dust at the shrinking Great Salt Lake, and Alaska Native communities having to actively demand the cleanup of abandoned military waste. It's a clear track record of why polluter accountability is absolutely crucial.
But we can't look at these issues in isolation. The EPA and leading health researchers stress that we have to measure what they call cumulative impacts. Basically, fence-line communities aren't just facing one bad chemical from one single factory. It's a compounding, overlapping mix of dirty air, toxic water, extreme heat, and structural social stressors hitting them all at once. The burden isn't just added up, it's multiplied.
Which brings us to Section 3, urban heat and water. This inequality extends far beyond the air we breathe.
It is literally about the temperature of the streets you walk on. Recent 2026 studies on urban heat show this incredibly stark contrast. More affluent areas usually have lush, cooling tree canopies that lower temperatures and bring huge health benefits. Meanwhile, heavily paved, under-resourced fence-line neighborhoods turn into extreme urban heat islands. And that's not just uncomfortable, it is a severe hazard. Trapped heat worsens allergies, it aggravates asthma, and it creates super dangerous conditions for older adults and pregnant people whose bodies are already under climate stress.
And it's the exact same story with the water in our tops. The UN recently put out a stark warning that we are entering an era of global water bankruptcy fueled by environmental degradation. And there are some really tough complexities here. For instance, the massive rush for clean energy mining to build electric vehicle batteries. It's actively threatening rural and indigenous river systems, Add to that the widespread PFAS forever chemicals showing up everywhere from local topwater all the way to the coast of southern England, and we're looking at a full-blown water justice crisis.
So, when official government monitoring networks sometimes just totally miss these vulnerable neighborhoods and public funding for resilience is constantly shifting, you have to ask, how do these frontline communities actually fight back against this hidden, systemic pollution?
Well, that leads us to our final and honestly most empowering section, the power of community mapping and reclaiming agency.
I love this example from Pacoima, Los Angeles. Instead of just waiting for official help, residents took matters into their own hands. They deployed networks of low-cost sensors on their offices, their homes, even strapped them to their bags. They literally walked around tracking hyperlocal smog and particulate matter that the widely spaced official EPA monitors completely missed. They took the invisible and made it visible. And they've got some incredibly powerful mapping tools at their disposal to help prove these cumulative impacts. You've got the EPA's EJ screen, which overlays environmental and demographic data to instantly show where the burdens are heaviest. There's CalEnviro screen doing this block by block in California. Then you've got community-led networks like Purple Air and OpenAQ tracking local smoke in real time. And tools like the Tree Equity Score, which advocates use to mathematically prove exactly where shade and cooling investments are desperately needed.
And the best part? This data isn't just sitting in an academic journal somewhere. It is driving real, on-the-ground action. Citizens in heavily polluted Newark just used cumulative health data to challenge new fossil fuel infrastructure permits. In Illinois, communities modeled the exact asthma benefits of switching to zero-emission trucks to force policy changes. In Laredo, Texas, advocates are using advanced LiDAR tech to map out tree canopy gaps to secure urban cooling grants. And globally, researchers in New Delhi are strategically placing new sensors to catch totally hidden aerosol hotspots. This data is absolutely driving change.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought to chew on. We've seen the heavy reality of toxic emissions, the overlapping burdens of urban heat, and the incredible power of community science tools like EJ Screen. Now it's your turn to look around. What is your own neighborhood's hidden environmental footprint, and how might you use data to actually change it? Thanks so much for learning with us today. Keep asking questions, keep looking at the data, and we will see you in the next explainer.